Welcome back to today's Deep Dive, the First Intelligence Podcast. Today is the 24th episode, and as always, we are proud to share it with you guys.
It's great to be back.
Thank you for all of your support. You are just amazing. So let's get to it. Today is Sunday, August 3rd, 2025.
Right.
I hope you already follow us on our YouTube channel, Next Site Intelligence, and also on Spotify. Look us up, Deep Dive Intelligence Podcast, and make sure to follow us. So let's take a look at today's intelligence report. You know, one of the most exciting things about these deep dives is getting a glimpse into the raw intelligence that informs so many crucial decisions around the world.
Absolutely. It's fascinating stuff.
And today we're diving into an incredibly detailed report from NextSight, an amazing and dedicated intelligence company.
They really are. They're all about global intelligence.
And they've even developed their own open source intelligence platform called SiteConnect to help investigators globally.
That's SiteConnect. It's a powerful tool.
If you're curious to see more of what they do, definitely check out www.next-site.com.
Worth a look.
NextSight provides these incredibly detailed intelligence reports to their customers, and they even customize them to fit specific interests.
Tailored intelligence, which is key.
This is our regular daily deep dive, and today we're focusing on the intelligence brief for Saturday, August 2nd, 2025.
Okay. Before we unpack the specific news and insights, it's probably crucial to understand the framework behind this intelligence. The reliability confidence flags.
Right, the flags. Always important.
Exactly. These flags are used to assess the trustworthiness of the information. Source reliability, using the Admiralty AF system, tells us how dependable the origin of the information is. That goes from A for completely reliable down to F for cannot be judged.
A to F. Got it.
And then there's information confidence on a scale of 1 to 6. This indicates how true the information is likely to be. 1 means confirmed by independent sources, while 6 means cannot be judged.
1 to 6. Confirmed down to cannot be judged.
Understanding these really helps you gauge the weight of each piece of intelligence we're about to discuss.
Okay, with that framework in mind, let's unpack the big picture from NextSight's executive summary for August 2nd. It paints a broad stroke of global affairs, doesn't it?
It really does. A lot happening.
Highlighting persistent humanitarian crises and diplomatic maneuvers in the Middle East, political turbulence across Africa and Latin America.
And notable policy adjustments in Asia and Oceania, too.
Right. And here in North America, we saw a mix of environmental hazards and some high-profile investigations. Meanwhile, Europe hosted some significant mass gatherings.
A busy day globally.
This definitely sets the stage for our deeper dive into the specifics. So let's start by zeroing in on North America. Looks like a day of environmental and legal pressures.
That's a good way to put it, starting with the environment.
The Canadian wildfire smoke, right? Thick smoke drifted south, causing air quality alerts across the U.S. Midwest. Must have forced vulnerable populations indoors.
Exactly. This report is flagged A2 with a moderate threat level.
A2. So, completely reliable source, probably true information.
Precisely. It's about the U.S. National Weather Service and state health authorities issuing alerts in the Midwest. Think Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan on August 2nd, all due to smoke from ongoing fires up in Ontario and Quebec.
The main goal being preventing respiratory problems.
Yes, and you saw cross-border monitoring being coordinated. Financially, the angle here involves potential disruptions to outdoor labor and, increased healthcare costs down the line.
Makes sense. And then the legal pressure. A U.S. federal agency opened a formal investigation into former special counsel Jack Smith.
That's the one. Flags here are B3, threat level low.
B3, usually reliable source, possibly true info.
Okay.
So this involves the U.S. Office of Special Counsel, the OSC, looking into Jack Smith in Washington, D.C. as of August 2nd. The allegation is that Smith used sealed grand jury evidence in public filings.
And the investigation aims to see if he compromised defendants' rights. That's the core question. Former President Donald Trump is indirectly involved since the documents relate to investigations concerning him. Financially, you're looking at potential legal costs and, of course, political fundraising impacts.
Always a factor. Okay, also in North America, bit of sports news. Victoria Mboko upsetting Coco Gauff at the Canadian Open.
Yes, quite the upset in Montreal. Canadian teenager Victoria Mboko stunned the top-seeded American Coco Gauff 6-1, 6-4.
Wow.
This sports news has flags A1 minimal threat level.
A1, completely reliable source, confirmed by independent sources. Rock solid.
Absolutely. This was a fourth-round tennis match upset at IGA Stadium on August 2nd. Reports say Mboko's aggressive play and Goff's errors led to it, probably fueled by the home crowd advantage from Mboko.
Who does she face next?
She'll face Jessica Buzas-Monero. Financially, this is obviously a boost for Mboko's ranking and her sponsorship potential.
Big win for her. And one more from North America. President Trump ordering nuclear submarines repositioned. That sounds serious.
It does. This was reportedly in response to former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev's remarks about striking U.S. territory.
Okay, and the flags.
This highly sensitive item has flags B2, threat level low.
B2. Usually reliable source. Probably true. Low threat, despite the topic.
Well, yes. This involved President Trump and Medvedev on August 2nd. The directive was to reposition U.S. Navy Strategic Forces locations, of course undisclosed. It seems to have been primarily a public statement for deterrence.
Posturing, perhaps.
Experts quoted noted that these submarines are already on constant patrol anyway. Arms control experts and defense analysts are watching closely, naturally. The financial aspect indicates potential bumps in defense spending, but markets mostly saw it as posturing, as you said.
Interesting. Okay, let's move across the Atlantic. Europe saw a mix of spiritual gatherings, protests, and ongoing security challenges.
That's right. Quite a range of activities.
Pope Leo calling Catholic youth to build a better world. That sounds like a major event.
It was. Pope Leo XIV drew hundreds of thousands of young Catholics to Rome for a jubilee of youth vigil. He urged them to build a more humane world and serve the poor.
Flags on that.
Flags are A2, minimal threat level. A completely reliable source, probably true information. This was a religious vigil outside Rome at Tor Vergata Field on August 2nd, involving youth from over 146 countries.
The Pope delivered his sermon.
Yes, and interacted with the crowd. The aim was clearly to energize youth during the Catholic Holy Year and encourage social justice. Economically, it stimulates pilgrimage tourism and the local Roman economy.
And then the Amsterdam Pride Parade blended celebration with protest.
It did. 80 boats sailed through the canals. It was flagged B2, threat level low.
B2 again. Usually reliable. Probably true.
Yes. This flotilla in Amsterdam on August 2nd involved Pride organizers and participants. Lots of colorful boats, but also protest signs, specifically against anti-LGBTQ policies in Hungary and critical of U.S. leader Donald Trump.
Any incidents?
Some activists were apparently arrested for vandalism, so it aimed to celebrate LGBTQ rights, but also protest repression abroad. It definitely boosts local hospitality revenues, but carries a bit of reputational risk for corporate sponsors.
I see. Now, the security side. Belgian police raided a cocaine lab in Quebec.
Yes. Dismantled a lab, seized 60 kilograms of drugs, and arrested 10 suspects. Flags are A2, threat level moderate.
A2 moderate. Completely reliable, probably true.
This was a raid by Belgian federal police in Quebec, West Flanders, on August 2nd. They seized cocaine, chemical precursors, and firearms. It's part of ongoing efforts against drug networks, with suspected links to Dutch traffickers. The financial aspect points to disrupting illicit trade worth millions of euros.
Significant bust. And a Ukrainian drone attack sparked a fire at a Russian oil depot in Sochi.
That's the report. It ignited a fuel tank, prompted the temporary closure of Sochi Airport, highlighting these continuing cross-border attacks. Flags here are B3, threat level low.
B3. Usually reliable, possibly true.
Right. This attack was on August 2nd in the Adler district of Sochi. Allegedly Ukrainian military versus Russian emergency services. A drone strike ignited a 2,000 cubic meter fuel tank. Russia claimed to shoot down 93 drones around that time.
Part of the ongoing conflict's infrastructure targeting.
Exactly. Financial impacts include potential damage to oil supply and those temporary flight suspensions we mentioned.
Okay, let's shift to Asia. A balancing act here. Domestic reconciliation, energy pragmatism, international cooperation.
A real mix, yes. Let's start with Indonesia.
The president freed political and other prisoners.
That's right. Indonesia's president granted clemency to hundreds of prisoners, including political detainees, in a bid to foster national unity. This is flagged A2, threat level low.
A2. Completely reliable, probably true.
On August 2nd, President Prabowo Subianto ordered this mass release from prisons across Indonesia. It included independence activists from West Papua and anti-government protesters. It's a presidential decree under a unity initiative aiming to promote national reconciliation ahead of the 2025 general elections.
Involves the Ministry of Justice.
And human rights groups, yes. It also reduces prison system costs and generates some political goodwill for the president.
Interesting move. Meanwhile, India decided to continue buying Russian oil despite U.S. threats.
Yes, Indian officials announced that refiners would keep buying Russian oil, citing price advantages and sovereign energy security. Flags are B3, threat level moderate.
B3, usually reliable, possibly true. Moderate threat level on this one.
Correct. On August 2nd, officials in New Delhi confirmed this stance. It's a government directive to state-owned refiners, emphasizing purchases are happening above the G7 price cap to ensure energy security and get those discounts.
So prioritizing national interest over potential sanctions risk.
It seems so. It involves ongoing discussions with U.S. diplomats and Russian suppliers, obviously supporting India's energy sector, but with that potential exposure to secondary sanctions hanging over it.
A calculated risk. And some cricket news.
Yeah.
India setting a daunting target for England.
Yes, in the fifth test at the Oval, Yashasvi Jaiswal scored a century and Mohammad Siraj struck late. Flags are C4, minimal threat level.
C4. Fairly reliable source, but doubtfully true information. That seems odd for sports.
Right. While a 4 for confidence might seem low, in the context of live sports reporting, it often just reflects that details like exact play-by-play might be subject to very quick updates or minor corrections. It doesn't usually mean the event itself didn't happen or the core outcome is wrong.
Okay. So the match happened August 2nd at the Oval, London. Jaiswal scored 118. Siraj bowled Zach Crawley. India's trying to level the series.
That's the gist. Financially, big matches like this boost viewership and sponsorship for cricket.
Understood. And finally, for Asia, Japanese astronaut Kimiya Yui arrived at the ISS.
Yes, Japan celebrated his arrival for his second mission, emphasizing collaboration with U.S. and Russian counterparts. Flags are A2, minimal threat level.
A2, completely reliable, probably true.
On August 2nd, astronaut Kimiya Yui arrived at the ISS aboard a SpaceX Crew 11 spacecraft. He joined NASA and Roscosmos astronauts for a 6-month mission, launched from Kennedy Space Center.
What's the mission focus?
Conducting experiments to support future lunar exploration and related technologies. It's part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, supporting the aerospace industry. Shows continued international cooperation in space, despite ground-level tensions sometimes.
Good point. Now let's turn to the Middle East. Remains highly volatile, and humanitarian risks are tragically rising.
Tragically is the right word. The reports from Gaza are deeply concerning.
Israeli forces reportedly killed 18 at a Gaza aid site amid rising hunger deaths.
That's the report from hospitals in Gaza. They said 18 civilians were killed by Israeli gunfire at aid distribution sites. This adds to more than 1,300 aid seekers reportedly shot since May. Flags are B2, threat level high.
B2 high. Usually reliable, probably true. High threat level.
Yes. On August 2nd, Israeli Defense Forces allegedly fired on Palestinian civilians seeking food in the northern Gaza Strip. The UN estimate is over 1,300 aid seekers killed since May. Israel cited security concerns while critics accuse them of using starvation as a weapon.
Involves UN agencies.
And the Gaza Health Ministry, yes. It just deepens the humanitarian crisis and adds to the immense future reconstruction costs.
And Hamas denied willingness to disarm and criticize the U.S. envoy.
Correct. Hamas officials rejected reports that the group would disarm. They asserted a right to resist occupation and criticized U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff's statements. Flags B3, threat level high.
B3 high. Usually reliable, possibly true.
On August 2nd, Hamas political wing spokespersons in Gaza and Doha issued public statements denying disarmament, stating armed resistance will continue. They accused the U.S. of bias, clarifying their position amidst ongoing peace talks involving Israel and U.S. negotiators. Continued hostilities just prolong those reconstruction costs.
Conflict continues elsewhere, too. Syria's defense ministry and the Kurdish-led SDF traded blame over a rocket attack.
Yes, in Manbij. The attack injured soldiers and civilians, underscoring those fragile ceasefire arrangements. Flags B3, threat level high again.
B3 high. Usually reliable, possibly true.
This was on August 2nd in the Manbij countryside, northern Syria. Involved the Syrian Defense Ministry and the Syrian Democratic Forces. Artillery and rocket exchanges occurred, but the exact trigger is unclear. It reflects the fragile integration attempts after Assad's fall. Involves the Syrian interim government and the U.S.-backed SDF. Continued instability deters investment, obviously.
And a Reuters exclusive. U.S. envoy working on a plan to end the Gaza war, but Hamas demands statehood first.
That's the scoop. U.S. envoy Witkoff apparently told Israeli hostage families he's working with the Israeli government on a plan to end the war. Hamas responded that it would only demilitarize if a fully sovereign Palestinian state is guaranteed. Flags B2, threat level high.
B2 high.
Yeah.
Usually reliable, probably true.
This was August 2nd. Witkoff met families in Jerusalem while Hamas leaders issued media statements. It involved recorded meetings and leaked statements, all aimed at addressing the humanitarian crisis and negotiating hostage releases. Key players are Israeli PM Netanyahu and the U.S. administration. Any positive outcome could point to potential reconstruction aid and regional investment flows, but it's a big if.
And tragically, a Palestinian boy died of starvation amid the aid blockade.
Yes, Al Jazeera reported the starvation death of a 17-year-old Palestinian boy, Atef Abu Qatar, due to Israel's blockade. Highlights the escalating humanitarian toll. Flags B2, threat level high.
B2 high. Usually reliable, probably true.
On August 2nd, Atef Abu Qatar died of malnutrition in Gaza City. His weight reportedly fell to just 25 kilograms due to lack of food and medical care. Israel's blockade has severely curtailed aid deliveries, causing these severe food shortages. It points to the continued humanitarian siege, with international actors seemingly slow to intervene effectively. Highlights the cost of aid delays and future rehabilitation needs.
It's awful. Okay, moving to Africa. Modest progress in regional cooperation, but also persistent governance and security challenges.
That sums it up well. A bit of good news, some worrying signs.
The DRC and Rwanda agreeing on an economic cooperation framework? That sounds like progress.
It is. They agreed on a framework integrating mineral supply chains and joint hydropower projects. It's part of a U.S.-brokered peace initiative. Flags are A2, threat level moderate.
A2, moderate. Completely reliable, probably true.
On August 2nd, Presidents Felix Tshisekedi of the DRC and Paul Kagame of Rwanda signed this framework in Kigali. It was a U.S.-brokered negotiation. The idea is joint exploitation of minerals and hydropower to cement the recent ceasefire and rebuild trust after years of conflict. A U.S. envoy and African Union observers were involved.
Expected to attract investment.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
And stabilize mineral exports, a positive step.
But then, Mali charged its ex-prime minister over a social media post.
Yes, Mali's military-run government charged former Prime Minister Moussa Mara with defaming the authorities after he expressed support for jailed critics. Flags are B3, threat level high.
B3 high. Usually reliable, possibly true,
Right.
high threat.
On August 2nd, Moussa Mara was arrested and charged in Bamako with defamation and public disorder after sharing solidarity messages on X, formerly Twitter. Authorities claim the posts support seditious activities. Critics call it suppression of dissent.
Yeah.
Involves detained activists and civil society groups. Politically, it signals instability, deters investment, and could affect aid flows.
Concerning. And South Africa arrested 1,000 illegal miners in Barberton.
Yes, around 1,000 near Barberton in a week-long operation targeting clandestine gold operations. Flags are B2, threat level moderate.
B2, moderate. Usually reliable, probably true.
This was over a week, culminating on August 2nd. The South African Police Service conducted this mass arrest operation in Mpumalanga province. Police cordoned off mines and arrested miners as they emerged, aimed at combating illegal mining and the associated dangers, involves mine security officials, and disrupts illicit gold trade.
And Somalia's NISA claimed the killing of 8 al-Shabaab members.
Yes, Somalia's National Intelligence Agency claimed it killed 8 al-Shabaab members in an operation in Hirayan, a key front line in the government's offensive. Flags are C4, threat level moderate.
C4, moderate, fairly reliable source, doubtfully true info, same caveat as the sports report.
Exactly. The confidence is lower because it's a single source claim without independent verification, which is very common in active conflict zones like Hirayan. The operation was apparently conducted on July 31st, announced August 2nd in the Abori area. NISA claimed it was a joint raid with international partners to disrupt militants. Could influence donor funding for Somalia's security sector.
Right. Let's move to Latin America. Facing social unrest, industrial accidents, and rule of law challenges.
A pretty typical snapshot for parts of the region, unfortunately.
Rescue efforts continuing after a Chile mine collapse.
Yes, at Chile's El Teniente copper mine. Rescue teams recovered bodies after a collapse killed at least 2 workers and trapped others. Flags B2, threat level moderate.
B2, moderate, usually reliable, probably true.
This was on August 2nd at the El Teniente mine in Rancagua, run by Chilean state miner Codelco. A landslide collapsed a shaft. Rescuers were drilling new tunnels, likely due to heavy rains and geological instability. Involved the Chilean government and miners' families. It disrupts copper output and could potentially nudge global copper prices.
Tragic. On a lighter note, Peruvian soft drink Inca Cola's rivalry with Coca-Cola revisited.
Yes. A feature explored its historical dominance over Coke, citing wartime shortages and savvy marketing back in the day. Flags are B3, threat level minimal.
B3, minimal, usually reliable, possibly true.
On August 2nd, an Al Jazeera feature traced Inca Cola's history in Peru since 1935, highlighted its success through wartime demand, national pride, and marketing that tied it to Peruvian identity. It really shows how local brands can capture market share even against giants. Inca Cola still controls about 60% of Peru's soft drink market.
Fascinating bit of business history.
Mhm.
Then, a big legal story. Former Colombian President Alvaro Uribe sentenced to house arrest.
A major development. Sentenced to 12 years of house arrest for bribery and witness tampering. Signals judicial accountability. Flags are A2, threat level moderate.
A2, moderate, completely reliable, probably true.
On August 2nd, Colombia's Supreme Court ordered Uribe to serve 12 years house arrest in Bogotá. The court found he bribed witnesses and obstructed justice, a move to hold former leaders accountable for corruption. Involves prosecutors and victims' families. It signals judicial independence and might influence the investment climate.
Significant ruling. And finally, for Latin America, Brazilian protesters burned Trump effigies over tariffs.
Yes, in Brazil, protesters burned effigies of Donald Trump and demanded economic relief. U.S. tariffs sparked anger and fear of job losses. Flags B3, threat level moderate.
B3, moderate, usually reliable, possibly true.
On August 2nd, Brazilian trade unions and protesters demonstrated in São Paulo. They marched, burned effigies, called for retaliatory measures. The concern is U.S. tariffs threatening jobs in Brazil's metal industry. Involves Brazilian government officials and the U.S. administration. These tariffs could reduce Brazilian exports and create market anxiety for steel producers.
Shows a direct impact of trade policy on the ground.
Okay, last region, Oceania Pacific, emphasis on policy shifts, sporting development, and public health vigilance.
That covers it. Some policy changes, sports, and a health concern.
New Zealand loosening conservation concessions and planning visitor fees.
Yes, the government announced sweeping changes to its Conservation Act, promises faster concessions for tourism and infrastructure projects, and new visitor fees of NZ $20-40 at high-traffic sites. Flags are A2, threat level low.
A2, low, completely reliable, probably true. On August 2nd, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon and Conservation Minister Tama Pataka announced these reforms in Wellington. Outlines streamlined permit processes and new charges. The aim is to stimulate economic growth, create jobs, and fund infrastructure at overcrowded sites. Involves the Department of Conservation and tourism operators. Expected revenue of up to NZ $40 per visitor at certain spots.
Balancing conservation and economy. What about the sports? Samoa, New Zealand, and New Caledonia opening a U16 women's football tournament with wins.
That's right. Samoa defeated New Caledonia 5-0 and New Zealand beat Tonga 4-0. Flags are C4, minimal threat level.
C4, minimal. Fairly reliable, doubtfully true. Again, the sports reporting caveat.
Exactly. It's about the fast-paced reporting. This was August 2nd at Tufaiva Stadium, Nuku'alofa, Tonga. The Samoa, New Zealand, and Tonga U16 women's teams competed. Samoa's striker Lepa Foai scored twice. New Zealand scored 4 in the second half. It's a regional youth championship, fosters talent and female participation, enhances sports tourism and sponsorship potential regionally.
And the Solomon Islands edged American Samoa in another match.
Yes, 1-0 in another Group B match. Highlighting emerging talent. Flags C4, minimal threat level. Same reasoning applies.
C4, minimal. Fairly reliable, doubtfully true.
This was also August 2nd in Nuku'alofa. Solomon Islands versus American Samoa U16 teams. A timely goal in the second half and solid defense secured the win. This tournament aims to advance teams to the knockout stage. Limited immediate economic impact, more about development.
Got it. And tragically, a dengue outbreak killed 2 children in Samoa.
Yes, Samoa Global News reported this. 2 children from the same family died, prompting calls for stronger vector control measures. Flags B2, threat level moderate.
B2, moderate, usually reliable, probably true.
This happened August 2nd in Lalovia Village, Samoa. 2 young siblings died of dengue fever despite hospital treatment. Attributed to increased mosquito populations and limited vector control, involves the Samoan Health Ministry and the affected families, requires funding for public health campaigns, and could impact tourism if not controlled.
A serious health concern. Okay, now let's zoom out. Look at some crucial themes connecting these regional pieces. What stands out when you synthesize all this? Let's start with the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza.
Right. What's really striking here is how those individual reports from Gaza just build on each other. They paint a clear, devastating picture of escalating humanitarian suffering. We see the reported deaths at aid distribution sites, 18 people on August 2nd alone. Then there's the tragic rise in starvation deaths, like that 17-year-old boy, Atef Abu Qatar. The UN figure of over 1,300 aid seekers shot since May is staggering. And despite diplomatic efforts, like those by U.S. envoy Witkoff,
It seems stalled.
exactly. The core issue remains Hamas demanding a fully sovereign Palestinian state before disarmament, clashing with Israel's continued blockade and security posture. The indicators are all pointing downwards.
So what does this all mean for the bigger picture if these trends continue?
Well, connecting this to the bigger picture, it suggests that without a really significant easing of the blockade and a major diplomatic breakthrough for a durable ceasefire, famine and civilian casualties aren't just possibilities. They seem likely to keep rising. It's an incredibly critical situation threatening wider stability.
A grim outlook there. Another theme you flagged was political accountability and judicial actions. This really highlights the different ways justice plays out across borders, doesn't it?
It really does. On one hand, you have Colombia's former president, Alvaro Uribe, sentenced to house arrest. That looks like a win for accountability, right?
Seems like it.
But then you look at Mali. The former prime minister, Moussa Mara, is charged basically for supporting critics on social media. It raises a really important question. Is the judiciary genuinely independent everywhere, or is it sometimes weaponized?
A key question for analysis.
Absolutely. And the South African arrest of 1,000 illegal miners also fits here. It's about law enforcement, yes, but there are always human rights and economic desperation factors to consider. For investors, for foreign governments, this is a key signal when assessing political stability. Is the rule of law being upheld fairly or used selectively?
A crucial distinction. And the third theme, environmental and public health challenges. We saw Canadian wildfire smoke hitting the U.S., the dengue outbreak in Samoa, even New Zealand tackling over-tourism impacts.
Right, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, these aren't just isolated incidents happening in different corners of the world. They represent direct costs. Costs of climate-driven disasters like wildfires, costs of vector-borne diseases spreading, costs of unsustainable practices.
So governments need to be proactive.
They absolutely must invest in proactive measures. Better wildfire management, effective vector control programs like mosquito abatement for dengue, developing sustainable tourism infrastructure. Failure to do so doesn't just impact public health. It hits tourism revenues, strains healthcare, damages local economies. It's about building resilience.
Beyond the official reports, the deep dive also looked at people's hearsay, how events resonate on social media like X and Facebook. What did the report infer about public sentiment?
Yeah, this is always fascinating. While Nextsite doesn't directly scrape platforms for this report, it infers sentiment from public commentary found in secondary sources, gives a window into emotional responses and potential action.
So what did they find?
For hashtag Gaza starvation, many users reportedly shared videos of Atef Abu Qadir's emaciated body. The sentiment was overwhelmingly negative anger, despair. The report flags a risk of escalating global protests and cyber activism.
Okay, what about hashtag Pride Amsterdam?
Posts there celebrated the colorful boat parade, but also emphasized solidarity with Palestinians and trans rights and mocked Trump. Sentiment was positive, defiant. Minimal immediate risk flagged, but it shows that growing intersectionality in activism.
Interesting connection. And hashtag wildfire smoke.
U.S. residents share images of hazy skies, complained of headaches. Sentiment was mixed, but leaning towards concern. Some criticized climate policies, others questioned cross-border disaster management. Could influence local elections, environmental policy debates down the road.
And hashtag free Mali.
Supporters of the ex-Prime Minister Moussa Mara trended this hashtag, condemning the military regime, calling for international intervention. Sentiment was outraged. Risk here is potential street protests in Bamako and definitely negative investor perception.
So what's the overall takeaway from these trending sentiments? Do they matter beyond clicks and shares?
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating is how social media reflects these heightened emotional responses to crises, rights issues, political repression. These reactions aren't just online noise. They can translate into real-world action protests, lobbying for sanctions, consumer boycotts. They impact foreign policy, corporate reputations, everything. It's a pulse check on public will.
Right. Now for the really interesting part, the correlational analysis. How seemingly unrelated global events can trigger market movements and policy shifts. What hidden connections did the analysis uncover?
This is where you see the ripple effects. Take India's continued purchase of Russian oil. The Guardian report on this likely helped stabilize Ural's crude prices despite those U.S. threats. And interestingly, the Indian rupee actually strengthened slightly against the dollar right after.
Why?
It signals to investors India's commitment to affordable energy, possibly mitigating some oil price volatility concerns, at least for them. Shows how national energy policy plays directly into global markets.
And the New Zealand conservation reforms and tourism fees? How did markets react there?
A mixed bag. The announcement of those new NZ $2040 visitor charges caused a slight dip in Air New Zealand shares, maybe 1.5%. Analysts likely anticipated a small drop in inbound tourism. But interestingly, infrastructure stocks actually rallied a bit, expecting new projects driven by those faster concession approvals.
Short-term travel concerns, but long-term infrastructure hopes. Okay, what about the U.S. submarine repositioning order?
Following President Trump's directive, defense stocks like Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics saw a small uptick in after-hours trading, maybe around 0.8%. Reflects investor perception of possibly increased defense spending down the line.
But
But bond yields remain flat. This indicates the broader market generally viewed it as strategic posturing, like we discussed, not a sign of genuine imminent escalation, a key distinction for risk assessment.
and the Chile mine collapse.
News of the fatalities at Codelco's El Teniente mine caused copper futures on the London Metal Exchange to rise, about piece or QI 7%. Clear signal of market fears about supply disruptions from a major producer. Underscores how localized mine safety incidents can directly hit global commodity prices.
Makes sense. Finally, the Gaza humanitarian crisis. You mentioned an indirect correlation.
Yes, it's subtle but notable. The deepening humanitarian fears in Gaza seem to have pushed wheat futures up slightly, maybe 0.5%. Why? Investors might be hedging against potential food supply disruptions in the wider region due to instability spilling over or impacting shipping. It showed how interconnected fears about conflict and basic commodities are.
Fascinating connections. This report doesn't just inform, it also provides actionable insights. The next site offers recommended actions for organizations. What are some key takeaways there?
They offer tiered recommendations. For example, corporations operating in or sourcing from the region might consider engaging with neutral NGOs for humanitarian relief in Israel-Palestine to manage reputational risk. Businesses with interests in Africa should probably enhance their political risk monitoring given events like in Mali.
Practical advice.
Definitely. Copper consumers. Diversify supply chains, given the Chilean incident. Companies in North America. Address employee health concerns from wildfire smoke. Think flexible work, air filtration. Tourism operators in places like Samoa. Support local vector control efforts against dengue.
Anything else?
And a general one. Firms with global exposures should update their geopolitical risk assessments. They need to account for escalatory rhetoric, potential sanctions, even if current action seems symbolic. The core message is really about proactive adaptation in a very dynamic world.
This deep dive has really driven home how interconnected everything is, hasn't it? From a tennis match impacting sponsorships to a regional conflict subtly moving wheat prices, detailed, unbiased intelligence is just critical.
It truly is. What really stands out to me is how a single piece of news, when you analyze it through this intelligence framework, reveals so many layers of impact, humanitarian, economic, political. It just highlights that understanding the nuances behind the headlines is absolutely key to navigating the complexities we all face.
Couldn't agree more. Do not forget to follow us on YouTube and Spotify. Also like, share, and comment. We do look forward to hearing your opinion.
Yes, let us know what you think.
This is it for today. Enjoy your start of the week.